Psalm 36, please. Turn to Psalm 36. To the chief musician, a psalm of David, the servant of the Lord. These little introductions sometimes are useful and helpful. I think the servant of the Lord, from what I could see, only also showed up in Psalm 18 in the title. Psalm 18 was from David's old age. Psalm 36 seems to be from a younger David. And so what's great about David is from youth to old age, a servant of the Lord. Now his responsibilities changed a lot, but he always had responsibilities even as a little shepherd boy. Even as a little, the little shepherd boy, it sounds so beautiful. You go out there with the bears and the lions and the desert and the weather and, it's not a 4-hour shift. And so he understood responsibility from a young age. He was out there training with his sling, and he was out there caring for his flock. And God took that responsibility and just added and added and added. And he grew and he grew and he grew. And let's get into the psalm. It's not long tonight, but let's look at it. Verse 1, the transgression of the wicked saith within my heart, that there is no fear of God before his eyes. Now, when I first read that, I thought it said saith within his heart. But it's not. It saith within my heart. In other words, when you see someone walking in transgression, trans is cross, so you're crossing God's boundaries, a trespass, sin, the trespass of sin, a transgression of the law. You're crossing the boundaries you're supposed to be crossing. In David's heart, he knew that person didn't fear the Lord. In other words, that was the proof of it to him. But you say, but wait a minute, but they say they're saved. Well, hey, we've heard the phrase, your actions speak so loudly, I can't hear what you're saying. You can say anything, really, but how we live, that shows something. And it's in the heart of people. When we see people transgressing God's laws, breaking the good and doing the wrong, we just know in our heart that person does not fear the Lord. And actually, we need to get that in our own hearts, though, because what happens, we're often tempted in our own lives to break the laws of God, to do evil instead of good, or to neglect good. And we should really dig into our hearts and say, what's going on here with me? Don't I fear the Lord? Don't I know that the eyes of the Lord are in every place, beholding the evil and the good? What's wrong with me? And we should go to prayer instantly, because that's a heart problem. We should live like God's watching. And not that that's always in fear, but it needs to start that way until we build a real walk, until we really tap into what it means, what the love of God really means. And then it changes, then it grows. It changes from fear of judgment of sin to, I just want to please God. And I know he's watching, and I know this will put a smile on his face. But we're not in smile on his face portion of the psalm just yet. We're in the heart of the wicked section. We've got a few more verses where we deal with the wicked. It says, verse 2, he flattereth himself in his own eyes until his iniquity be found to be hateful. The words of his mouth are iniquity and deceit. He hath left oft to be wise and to do good. He deviseth mischief upon his bed. He setteth himself in a way that is not good. He abhorreth not evil. And so actions follow the heart. Actions prove what's in our heart or what's not in our heart. Just as we've taught in the past that faith is evidenced through action, So we see the same holds true for someone who has no faith, who has no fear of the Lord. It's seen in how they live. Now, verse 2 starts with self-flattery. Think of the guy in the gym flexing, right? No, I'm just checking out my my symmetry. Yeah, you are. You're flattering yourself. And actually, that's one of those old sayings we've heard before when people get into those arguments and someone boasts himself. Well, you just wish you were as good as me, and the other person says, don't flatter yourself, right? They got that from Psalm 36:2. Flattery is, emphasizing and exaggerating our own goodness. Taking something, you got a 91 and you're like, I aced that test. Well, technically, it's an A-. Words of the mouth. Some people can't speak for more than 30 seconds without taking the name of the Lord in vain. There is no fear of God in their hearts, in their eyes. Blasphemous manner of life. Many of us maybe grew up that way and had to learn how to watch our tongues. Well, that doesn't go away. You may have trained your tongue throughout the years of your life, but if you're not careful, you spend a lot of time listening to the wrong things, watching the wrong movies, being with the wrong people. It's very easy to start to mimic that. If you find yourself cussing, you've probably been in the wrong place for a while. It's time to fix it. Fix it. Last time we were in Psalms, we had ponder the path of thy feet. Let all your ways be established before the Lord. But here in verse 4, instead of thinking through his life for God, he's thinking how he can not just cause trouble. I mean, mischief is like troublemakers, but for their own self, for their own pursuits, for their own fun, for their own glory. Where are you letting your mind take you? What are you focusing your thought energies on? He devised selfish pursuits. He sets himself in a way that's not good. But I started thinking about setting himself. I was in the medical field for a long time, and you would deal with broken bones. Does anyone know another name for a broken bone? An official name, a medical term? Fracture. They would come in with, say, a fractured humerus. That's not funny. But what we would do is we would need to set the bone with a splint. They have these cool air splints in the ambulances, so we could just put on and blow up with air really powerfully with some positive pressure and immobilize it and set it so it wouldn't move. And these people we hear about some people that, he's just set in his ways. Okay, well, you can't change me, preacher. I'm set in my ways. Well, don't be too set in your ways. God might want to change you. God might want to grow you some more. And it's easy to get set not just in your ways, but in a way that is not good. In a way that is not good. So never be like this. We want to always make sure that we're teachable. I learn more all the time. I've been behind a pulpit now for a long time. I'm still learning. I'm still growing. I'm still making mistakes. Be teachable. Desire growth. He abhorreth not evil. So it's not just that we're supposed to steer ourselves away from evil, although we should. We're supposed to abhor evil. That means to spurn, to cast away, to refuse, to reject. Call evil evil. Stay away from it. Reject it. So we have in the first section of the psalm the wicked and his set in his ways. But now we have a wonderful contrast and maybe an antidote. The character of God. Verse 5. Thy mercy, O Lord, is in the heavens, and thy faithfulness reacheth unto the clouds. I'll just think about that verse for a minute. Close your eyes with me. Think about the mercy of God. Think about the vastness of God in the heavens, and His faithfulness. You know what happens sometimes? We can get so wound up, verses 1 through 4, with the wicked, politics, all kinds of bad things going on in this world, that we never allow ourselves to get to verse 5. We have to go to verse 5 and not be stuck in verses 1 through 4. Yeah, the wicked do this and the wicked do that and the enemy's doing this. And yeah, okay, but God's on the throne. He's merciful. He's faithful. He's righteous. Verse 6, thy righteousness is like the great mountains. Have you ever seen a vast mountain range? It just made you sigh. It's good. That's one of the reasons we like to go up into the White Mountains in New Hampshire. We love it. We just love to drive through and look at God's creation. It just reminds us of the righteousness of God. Thy judgments are a great deep. That's the idea of a vast sea. The deepness, an ocean. Shall not the judge of the earth do right? God's always going to do right. You never have to wonder, is God going to mess this up? He won't. O Lord, thou preservest man and beast. Preserving. 1 Peter talks about us who are kept by the power of God through faith unto salvation. That's preserving. God preserves us. How excellent is thy loving kindness, O God. Therefore the children of men put their trust under the shadow of thy wings. There are two ways when you're reading Psalms that you can think of. We see this phrase, shadow of your wings, several times. Can anyone think of one way we think of being under the shadow of his wings? What's the idea? Protection. But specifically, what's the image like that we see like on earth? A mother hen. A mother hen taking care of her babies, right? Keeping them right close. You don't even know they're there sometimes. And then the mother hen moves and they're like, there's like 7 under there. Like, where'd you keep all those baby chickens? Right? Under the shadow of the wings. But there's another great way too. You can think of the wings of the cherubim and the holiest of holies. They are on the lid of the Ark of the Covenant, which is the representation of God's throne. And you have the law of God in the ark. And the blood would drop on that mercy seat between the wings of the cherubim. And so when you think of the shadow of his wings, you can think like, the protection of a mother hen. You can also think of the blood sacrifice of Jesus Christ being our protection. How excellent is God. Verse 8, they shall be abundantly satisfied with the fatness of thy house, and thou shalt make them drink of the river of thy pleasures. I know, fatness, right? You think fullness and plenty. Don't forget, in our English language 400 years ago, most people were skinny and malnourished. Like, the idea of fatness was a good idea. A little meat on the bone. It's a good thing. Fullness, positive connotation. Now in the West, it's a health epidemic. And so that might change the way we see verses like this. But when you're reading your King James and you see fatness, it's always positive. It's always good. Except with King Ehud. That's the exception. I came to God with nothing. I really did. I came to God with nothing. And I have never wanted for anything as his child. And he has blessed me more than I deserve. Given me more than I have a right to ask for. How can we complain when our God is so good? And we have this rivers of... that's why I asked Nathan. I was preparing this message yesterday, and I instantly thought of joy is flowing like a river. Since the Comforter has come. That's the first verse, I think, of Blessed Quietness that we sang. Flowing like a river, the joy of God. And everyone loves a fountain, right? And, Oh, verse 9, for with thee is the fountain of life, in thy light shall we see light. So everyone loves a fountain. They draw us. There's something about them. They speak of power and sustenance coming out of the earth and bubbling with life. A sunrise. These things are created by God for beauty. God bubbles over. He's like rivers of living water. His light shines in our heart. We don't really know what light is except for His light. He illuminates our way. And nature, when I say nature, I mean the natural creation of God. It's beautiful and is a reflection of His beauty in so many ways. That's why there's so many atheists in the big cities. Can't see the stars at night. Can't see God's handiwork. They can't even see stars at night in the big cities. They need to get away from the skyscrapers and go look at some of His mountains and some of His rivers. Verse 10, O continue thy loving kindness unto them that know thee, and thy righteousness to the upright in heart. He's asking for blessings in the now. God, we want to see you working in our lives as we try to serve you. Verse 11, let not the foot of pride come against me. Let not the hand of the wicked remove me. There are the workers of iniquity fallen. They are cast down and shall not be able to rise. And so he finishes with this short prayer. You know what? You don't have to have a lot of long prayers in life, but you should have lots of short ones. Lots of short ones. A spirit of prayer. He's asking God that He wouldn't let us continue without His mercy, that His mercy would continue, and ultimately the spirit here that He did not want to fall. God, I don't want to fall. He recognized the evil in the world. He recognized the evil in Himself. It exists. But rather than fear them, recognize the beauty of God, the working of God, the hand of God. And I think, again, we see the contrast in the beginning of the psalm of the evil man and the beauty of the character of God. And I think the antidote to the evil way, or with the stress of living in a world of evil men, is meditating on the character of God over and over again, praising Him for His goodness, and being thankful for what He's done. And that's all I've got tonight. Thank you, and God bless.